Hare Krishna. As you know, today's topic is secret of success. Uh, Many of us definitely, at some or other point of our life, would have come across this word success. And for most of us, the life when we try to define our life and when we try to understand or want to know insights of life of any person, then we evaluate the credentials or parameter whether that person is really successful in life or not. And and the definition of success or the parameters to evaluate a credentials, whether it applies to us as an individual or whether it applies to people. When we look at the people in the society, the parameters are, there's a lot of variety around it. So from the day or the from the early beginning of our life, when we start growing within this world, then we keep on consciously evaluating what can be success for me. When we are there as a student, then we have a parameter of success. Okay, I want to be topper in my class. Then when we grow in the college life, then again, if not really the studies, then it could be some kind of social activity or some kind of sports participation or some kind of music participation. So that could be one of the success criteria for for some people. And when we further grow, then when it comes to searching for a life partner, then also if we get some really good life partner, then that also can be one of the criteria of success. When after that, when we get into married life, then growing up our kids nicely, giving them good education, building them their good career, that could be one of the criteria of success. And then when we come to a middle age group, around 35, 40, 45, then maybe social building, a social image, social respect can be one of the criteria of success. So different people have different criteria of success, and that criteria of success keeps on changing. As the time progresses, the definition and the criteria of success keeps on changing. But when it comes to our Vedic knowledge has a different parameters of success, which we'll be discussing today in our uh, uh, session. When it comes to neuroscience, or you can say psychology, as per neuroscience or psychology, success and happiness are contradictory to each other. So when I say contradictory, means if you really want to achieve success in your life, in the journey of your life, then definitely you will have to compromise with happiness. Like for example, when we are studying, so when if you want to study hard, that means we'll have to compromise on sports or other recreational activity that we probably like to do more, which gives us more happiness. But there we do a sacrifice. We stop on that side, and then we start focusing. Okay, let's focus on building a career. So that's why our neuroscience or psychology has a perspective that success and happiness are contradictory to each other. But if you talk about the spiritual journey, or if you talk about Vedic science, it is actually not contradictory. It is actually, it goes in harmony. It goes along. So if you have success in your spiritual journey, definitely you will have happiness, and that happiness, as we had defined in our earlier session, that happiness is bliss. So if you are working hard in the spiritual journey, it will it will give you different level of experience, which probably is difficult to achieve when you get a material success in your life. So there are social parameters, then there are Vedic parameters, and then what is the secret behind success in line with Vedic parameters that we'll be discussing today. So quickly moving to our discussion for today. Okay, so this is a story of a boatman. It is one of my favorite story, which I always like to present and use it in my discussions. So there was a boatman standing in late evening at the juncture of river. Then some group of people they come and request him that they want to go to that other side of the river, which is quite far, and it was late evening. So they request him, okay, we please take all of us to that side of the river, and they were ready. They are ready to pay him, and he happily agrees to take them. So when he's taking, and since it was late evening, so all people who were there in that group, and when they sit in that boat, they all kind of slept in the night, and the boatman was riding his boat all night, kept on making hard effort. When sun came up early morning, they realized gradually the group of people who were there in that boat, they started waking up, and they kind of observed that from the place from where they had actually started their journey, they found themselves to be at the same place. So they kind of got confused, and then immediately asked question from the boatman, what happened a whole night. We were riding in the boat, and we were off the view, but that by this time in the morning we'll be at our destination, but we are at the same place still. So during this discussion, and finally the boatman realized that although he was making a conscious effort whole night to help those group of people to pass from one corner of the river to the other side of the river, but in spite of making hard effort, he could not really bring them to the other corner of the river. So there was one mistake, and it was a grave and a serious mistake which he committed. And the mistake was he forgot to remove the anchor, as it was a night time, and he forgot to remove the anchor, and he was so busy in making hard work, and hard work, that they could not really move from the place from where they had started. So the story of a boatman gives us interesting lesson that a lot of people aspire, or a lot of people make conscious efforts or hard efforts in their life to achieve success, and they also become successful in a way that yes, they make hard work, and then they feel okay, we achieved it. This is what we wanted to achieve, and this is what we really achieved, and they feel proud in it, and at times they feel some happiness also, maybe. uh, but reality is uh, that, as I mentioned earlier, the success of this material world is coupled with the contradictory nature of happiness. So if you want to be successful in this world, then you have to compromise your happiness, and then probably there's a possibility that you can have success in your life. A similar thing we can see from the life of the story of this boatman, that he made effort, but his effort was not really fruitful. It did not really give intended result. Now, what is the intended result? That again varies from individual to individual. The parameter of the intended results are different. For me, the parameter can be different. For you, the parameter can be different. Let us try to explore what should be the real parameter, and let us also look into what different philosophers views are there on the concept of success. So different definitions are there in the market when you try to understand, or when you try to deep dive into this concept of success. So success, like, it is one of the definition which I found quite relevant to the discussion that we have today. Earl Nightingale, he has presented this definition, and he says success is a progressive realization of a worthy goal or ideal. So if we try to dissect this definition, it has four critical element, critical element on the basis of which we can actually define success. So first is progressive, second is realization, third is of a worthy, and then fourth is goal. So all these four words within this definition has a lot inside. If we try to deep dive into it, then we can extract a lot from these four words. And these are very generic word. It's not something that needs really a lot of explanation. But just a quick one example. Progressive means, okay, today we have A car, A category car. Tomorrow we should have B category car. This is progressive when it comes to the success parameter within the word view. Okay, today we live in this level house. Tomorrow we should move to that level house. Progressive. There should be movement. Then realization. Realization is again, realization could be in terms of external views, or realization could be our own internal realization, which we actually feel that yes, now I am successful. Now I have achieved this in my life. I am successful. So we realize at different stages of our life that yes, this realization gave me a sense of feeling, or gave me a sense of excitement that yes, I'm successful in my journey of life. And the third one is worthy and goal. It is interlinked, worthy, goal. In fact, in this entire four things, in this entire four words, the most critical word is goal. As I can see, the most critical word among all four words is a goal. So goal means we need to define a specific goal in our life, and the problem when we say success from a material perspective, the goal keeps on changing as we keep on moving from one tangent of our life to another tangent of our life. So how the goal keeps on changing? Example could be when we are student, our goal of life is to score good marks, to crack examination nicely. When we are in college, our goal could be to become a cricketer, or to be a good photographer, to be a singer. These could be our different goals. When we move further in our life, so the goal can be, okay, I want to get married to a nice girl, I want to get married to a nice, I should have a good boyfriend. All these things can come into picture. Then when we move further, after completing our education, we want a good job. That can be one of the goal. Then after getting a good job, good wife can be one of the object or goal. Then again, have a good family life. That can be one of the goal. Have good social life. That can be one of the goal. Good social image, or having a recognition in the society. That can be one of the goal. So as we move in our life, we observe most of the time our tangent, even the goal, we should be a worthy goal that keeps on moving from one pattern to another pattern. Something which we like at this stage of our life, or something which is very critical for us at this stage of life, which we defined as our goal, that same goal will change after a month, after 2 months, or after an year, or after 2 years, or after 3 years. It keeps on changing from time to time. So essentially, uh, it represents that the criteria of evaluating success from material perspective doesn't really fall into this definition, because your goal keeps on revolving. Goal keeps on revolving based on the time, place, and situation. So when your goal keeps on revolving, that means there is some disconnect in your approach on how you really want to achieve, how you want to fix the goal of your life. There's a disconnect. You may have a realization, you may progressively reach towards what you want to have, but your goal is not fixed. After 5 years, what your goal today is, your goal may entirely change, and you may not have any more interest in what your goal today is. So, this is one limitation of the goal which we set within the material world. Now, coming to the next part, no matter whatever success that we achieve in this world, ultimately, outcome of all success should be defined in three areas. If these three areas are not getting, if three conditions are not getting fulfilled, then then at least as I have understood based on my own experience and based on my own studies, then that means there is a problem in terms of what we really think success to be in our life. And another part of another limitation of material success which people define in their own way. Yeah, so another limitation of this, when we define success within this material world, and in fact this is the biggest limitation, that this is a world full of competition. At every stage there is a competition. The day when we even do not come into this world, the competition actually starts. And how does it start? It starts from the fact that, okay, fine, when our parents might be probably searching for a good hospital when we can have when they can deliver us, when we can take birth. So even finding good hospital, difficult to get beds in good hospital. Then after that, uh, the next is, okay, getting into education piece, getting admitted to a school, even after paying good amount of fees, still at times the kids do not really get good admission which their parents want in reality. So it's a word of competition, and every stage there is a competition. And when there is a competition, the biggest limiting factor in this word of competition is that if there are 100 people standing in a queue for a same thing or for a same position, you may say, okay, fine, out of 100, 10 people may achieve it, and 90 cannot achieve it. 10 people can achieve it, but 90 will always be separate from that masses. Uh, uh, 90 will always be separate from that classes, not masses, but classes. Again, example is like when I was studying my exam for CS, uh, the competition is usually quite high, and we most of the time observe that if 10 people started, finally by the end of the last stage, out of 10 probably two will actually qualify for it. Or when I did CPA, same thing came across. 10 people started, and finally two people could really achieve that. So what I'm trying to say here is this word is full of competition. When the word is full of competition, the rate of success becomes very lower. And when rate of success becomes very lower, and when you are trying to evaluate success on the basis of parameters which are limited, only limited section of the society can be up to that mark. That means we cannot really be successful when we try to look at things from a social angle. Okay, so the idea is, you may individually be very intelligent, or you may individually be very expert in a specific thing, but collectively, will it work? The answer is no, it will not work collectively. Collectively it cannot work because it has limitation. I have my capability, I have my skill set, but how my capability or how my skill set can make other person peaceful, how it can make other person satisfied, how it can make other person happy. If I have something, I can keep myself happy, peaceful, satisfied, but or maybe my family, but I cannot do justice to the society. So this success parameter from a modern perspective that we mostly observe, it has a limitation. It is always attached to the principle of limitation, that if you are thinking just for yourself, then probably okay, you may define these are the success criteria for me, then it is fine. But if you really want to think out of your own selfish zone of consciousness, then you have to work on a success which is mutually beneficial for the society as a whole, not just for yourself as an individual, but for the entire society. So that is the real outcome of success. If you talk about success for you, or we talk about success just for ourselves, then these three things are fine. Okay, you may achieve them in some way or other, but it may not be helpful for the society as a whole. So we have to work for the society eventually, or ultimately. We cannot just keep things for our benefit. This is the outcome of success. If these okay, I was telling earlier, when people try to achieve material success, then these three things actually miss. They don't really, many a times, they don't really reach up to these three things. And if they reach up to these three things, then it is confined to themselves. It has no relationship with society in reality. So this is one limitation of success from a material world perspective. Now, passage of success. It is something very interesting, very relevant from our practical perspective. Now, now we don't need to qualify it into material or spiritual. It is it is a rule that applies to everyone, whether you are prospering for material success or you are prospering for spiritual success. So you can see from example, I mean from this picture, there's a boy standing and he's trying to shoot arrow, and he tried different arrows, and after trying so many different arrows, only probably one or two actually got hit onto the track. Uh, so passes to success is nothing but failures are stepping stone to success. And this is very important whenever you are prospering on any journey of your life, even if it is from a material perspective or it is from a spiritual perspective. You have to be mentally ready that there will be failures, and uh, every person in this world who achieves success, most of the time they pass through different stages of failure, then only they achieve success. Otherwise it is almost difficult or impossible to achieve success. You can take you can take life of all different personalities, you can try to lead their life, and the similar thing applies to Srila Prabhupada, founder Acharya of Hare Krishna movement. If we read or just try to know about his life from the beginning of his life, and especially when he started his spiritual venture or spiritual mission in service to God and humanity, there he had to undergo a lot of challenges, a lot of troubles. So it is said, like it's like there are quotations about his life, it's lifetime preparation, because what he really wanted to achieve, that he achieved from 66 to 77. That was the last stage of his life, last 10 years of his life. Last 10 years means from his age of 70 to 80 years, he achieved whatever he actually wanted to achieve. So before that, if you go through his life, he really had a very hard trouble to come to the level which actually started his journey at 66. So failures are stepping stone to success. Now in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, when he's actually starting Bhagavad Gita, or when he's giving the summary view of Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, he brought this interesting point uh, to help Arjuna and to help ourselves also whenever we are progressing or whenever we are marching towards success in life. Yogas kuru karmani sanga tyakva dhananjaya siddhaya siddhayo samo bhutva samatva yog uchyate. Perform your duty equipoised, O Arjuna, abandoning all attachment to success or failure. Such equanimity is called yoga. So here he's bringing a very interesting point, uh, because success is an endless journey. It doesn't stop. And when you are on the path of success, definitely there will be different failures also. Like we can see from this example, a lot of failures will come across. And if you're not attached to success or failure, then you will continue your journey. So okay, here Krishna is trying to tell Arjuna that even if you get some success, don't get stick to it, carry on. Because if you will get attached to success, you will think, okay, fine, now this is done, I don't need to do anymore, and this is enough for this life. You will limit yourself. And the second is, okay, once you get fail, then you're okay, this is not possible for me, I'm not meant for it, I cannot do it, let me put it aside. So these are the two possible situations. But if you are equipoised, if you are having a equilibrium means equal state of mind to both the situations. When you have success, you do not become too much excited. Oh, I got success, I started preaching, hundreds of people joined in my program, and I'm just successful, and I'm so delighted, excited. Then we can easily lose the track. Or failure, we started preaching, maybe just one person came, and we just became moron. Nothing is happening, let's not do it. But a devotee who is neither attached to success nor attached to failure, at that stage he will continue, he'll keep on doing, he will keep on doing, he will keep on doing until the last breath of his or her life. And that would be the real test. That's what Krishna is telling to Arjuna. Ultimately, what you will be achieving is going to determine at the time of death what you are going to achieve. So perform your duty equipoised. So passage of success, because success is endless journey, it will have failures, it will have success in it. The best is don't get attached either to success or don't get attached to failure. And then only you will keep on marching on your mission. You can either apply it from a material angle also, or you can apply it from a spiritual angle also. Both ways it works. And we all must always remember this principle when we are marching in our spiritual journey. That passage of success will have both. It will have failure, it will have success. Okay, move on. Now we're talking about secret of success. Okay, this is interesting, and we have a lot of time, and we are almost there. Bhagavad Gita. Now Krishna is telling Arjuna. Now we are at chapter 18, dot 78, last shloka. One of my favorite shloka. Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, Yatra Partho Dhanurdhara, Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhuti, Dhruva Nitir Matir Mama. So wherever there is Krishna, the master of all mysteries, and wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will also certainly be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. That is my opinion. So this one shloka has a lot of things in it. Let us have some let us try to dissect it and then try to get into more deeper insights of what the shloka is teaching us. There are a lot of lessons that we can get from it. So one is wherever there is Krishna. Now let us go into that battlefield of Kurukshetra. In the battlefield of Kurukshetra, we know there were two parties, Pandavas and Kauravas. On the Pandava side, we know that Krishna was there. On the Kaurava side, definitely Krishna was not there. So wherever there is Krishna, and now let us compare it to our own life. So our world is our inner world. Inner world means within us also there is a battlefield. Now the battlefield can be divided in two categories. One is again Pandava side, another is a Kaurav side. Pandava side means when we are marching onto this journey of spirituality, and Kaurava side is when we are dealing with this world or when we are getting challenges from people of this world within our own internal spiritual journey. So wherever there is Krishna, so now within our own internal journey there are two situations. One is our own internal spiritual journey when things are going fine, which represents Pandavas. Other side is Kauravas. Now we all know Krishna is on the side of Pandavas. So when we are marching towards spiritual journey, we should always remember a fact or a rule of life that Krishna is with us. Like Krishna is there with Arjuna. And similarly, when we are progressing on the path of spirituality, we should always remember this fact or the game of life that Krishna is always with us. Whenever we are trying to make a little effort in understanding him or just doing something for him to please him, which can make him happy, which can make him satisfied, then you should always think that Krishna is on your side. And then the second thing, wherever there is Krishna, the master of all mysteries, and wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer. Now, when we say wherever there is Arjuna, Arjuna is nothing but it is representing us because we are also representing or we are also playing role of Arjuna. How we are playing role of Arjuna? Because Bhagavad Gita was spoken for us. Like Arjuna was there in the battlefield, as I mentioned, we are also there in the battlefield. So it was spoken for us via Arjuna. So we also indirectly play role of Arjuna when we are dealing within this world. And now Krishna is introducing the concept of what is the secret behind success. So if Krishna is there and we are trying to work in a manner Arjuna worked in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And how Arjuna worked in the battlefield of Kurukshetra? He basically was asking questions. He accepted Krishna as his authority, and he was asking different doubts which were coming in his mind, and Krishna was simply resolving the doubts of Arjuna. And the same approach we should also carry when it comes to our spiritual journey. We should also ask questions in a submissive manner. We should also ask queries. And then that relationship basically will lead to a destination, which we'll talk about. Before that, Bhagavad Gita 4.11 talks about the relationship between Krishna and Arjuna. It was a battlefield. Arjuna was ordering Krishna in the beginning because he was playing the role of a Sarthi. He was playing. He was there as a Partha Sarthi. Means he was playing the role of a Sarthi for Arjuna. So Arjuna was ordering Krishna, do this, do this, do this. But eventually he accepted Arjuna as his. He accepted Krishna as his guru. So you can see the difference how Bhagavad Gita was changing from one tangent to another. Initially, I mean, there was a point when they were friends also. There was a point when Arjuna was ruling him. There was a point when Krishna acted as guru, and all different levels of relationships were kind of getting exchanged within the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And similarly, this is since this is the nature of the Lord, he never want to dominate his position or his view. That is why he never showcase himself that he is everything, or he showcase, but he never expect everyone to follow. He expect, but he never forces anyone to follow. If you look at this shloka in the end, he's telling that is my opinion. You see the kind of word that Krishna is using. He is not trying to force. He's just giving an opinion. This is called as the beautification in the words which have been used by Krishna while speaking Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. He is not telling that this is my verdict. Though we say Bhagavad Gita as Nirnaya Shastra, but at the conclusion he is telling this, that is my opinion. That is not my order. He is not showing that I am giving some order to Arjuna when Arjuna is supposed to follow. Arjuna should follow my order. He is not trying to showcase himself in that category. This is how people can understand relationship between Lord and his devotees. So wherever there is Krishna, the master, wherever there is Arjuna, in a way we are also acting as Arjuna. There will also certainly be opulence. Now this is the fruit. If both are playing their role actively and properly, then what would be the outcome, or what would be the result? The result is certainly be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. These four things will be there by default. So if we in any case we exist in this world, we all know, and we know that this world is like a battlefield. Now what is the next section on our end? We have to invite Krishna within our own life. We have to work hard to have Krishna within the journey of our life. And what would be the outcome? Krishna is talking about the outcome in the form of victory. Victory is nothing but it's a success. When he's talking about victory, since he was standing in the battlefield, he told victory to Arjuna with reference to the fact that yes, you carry on, you fight, and you will win. That is going to happen for sure. Similarly, what is a victory for us? When we will keep on following the verdict or the words of Krishna in our day-to-day life, what would be the outcome? The outcome would be that we will be victorious at the end of our life. That is the secret of success. So there are a lot of different success criteria, different success definitions, but ultimately Krishna is trying to sum up the definition of success in this one paragraph. Now people may say, okay, fine, this definition looks good. Is it really going to help us materially also, or it is only going to help us spiritually? So the answer is that it depends on you what you want in your life. If you want to invite Krishna for the sake of material opulence or material victory, then it can work in that way. If you want to invite Krishna in your life to have a success from a spiritual perspective, then these opulence, victory, power, and morality will work in that direction. So the choice and the call has to be made by us consciously, what we really want. In Bhagavatam, we have that shloka that comes up with akama sarva kamo va moksha kama dharadi tivrena bhakti yogena. So that means whether you go to Lord Akam without your own selfish desires, or Kama to pursue your own selfish desires. Akama sarva moksha kame udharati. So, so the outcome is whether you go to Lord for pure devotion or you go to Lord for material opulences. Just go. That's what he's telling. Okay, fine, you go. At least you go. You will reach somewhere in a positive dimension. Don't keep on running here, there, or keep on doing hanky panky. At least you go to Krishna. That is what Krishna is expecting from us. So we'll have success. This is a secret there in Bhagavad Gita. There are so many other secrets that other people do talk about, but our secret is here in Bhagavad Gita, that let us take shelter of knowledge of Bhagavad Gita and then be successful in life. Let us see what more practical tips. So practical tips, I'll tell you three things in easy layman terms, which most of other organizations also use. It is called as 3S. In our Krishna consciousness, we also call it as ABCD, but like 3S predominantly means sadhana, seva, and satsang. So definitely for us, satsang comes first, that means association, then sadhana, that means chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and then comes seva. Now, seva is again a very broad and a wide concept. Service is something that we can talk at length just as one individual topic. What is the need of service? How much service we should perform? Uh, and service, ultimately, what is the outcome of service? Because at the end of the day, as I was mentioning in my earlier sessions also, that religion of love means we are talking about establishing our relationship with God. And the benchmark of establishing any relationship in this world is the mechanism of exchange, and that exchange is manifested via services that we provide to each other. So similarly, we if we want to deep dive onto the path of spirituality, we have this concept of service. You do some service to God, you do some service to devotees, and then you can gradually progress on this path of devotion and understand the deeper insights of it and help others to uh, make a conscious progress on this path of devotion. So these are some practical tips which we always talk about. So don't miss any of them, and definitely the list can be expanded, list can be elaborated, because there are a lot of different elements that comes within it. And like for example, I'll just give one simple association. When we say satsang, so satsang again, when we use this terminology satsang in our own traditional Indian way, then satsang is okay. Some Guruji will come, a lot of people will sit, and then Guruji will give some pravachan. This is how people think generally. Satsang, sat and sang, it is made of two words. So it is fine. I'm not saying it is wrong, but I'm just trying to say. And then when we are discussing here at this platform, we are talking about the message of God by using different approach, by using different analogies, by discussing on different topics. So this is also one of the mechanism of satsang. This is nothing but satsang. So traditional mechanism of satsang is that, and then within satsang also we have like two different divisions. One is called as book Bhagavad, another is called as person Bhagavad. When you associate with a person, like right now we are doing, it is called as person Bhagavad, association with a person, live association with a person. And then second is book Bhagavad. Book Bhagavad is when we read books, as it is Bhagavad Gita. Srila Prabhupada has given us so many different books. When we read those books, then we call the association. We are taking association via books, and it is called as book Bhagavad, associating via mechanism, via books. That is another way of taking association. And then right now we have so many advanced option technologies. You just put on Google, you can get a lot of insights onto different subjects, different topics. YouTube, so many channels are there from where you can have a lot of different material, and you can use them, refer them, learn from there. So much unlimited stuff available. And so we need to be a little intelligent how we have to categorize what we really want, wherein we can connect ourselves with, because every individual has his own style or approach of presenting this Vedic knowledge. So different set of people get connected with different set of people. For example, I am presenting the same philosophy. There might be other person presenting the same philosophy, but in a different manner. So someone may not be in a position to connect with them, which is okay. Ultimately, the crux of the game is that how much the person who is presenting the fact is sincere on the path of spirituality. That is going to be the deciding benchmark, not how much deeper insights you are talking about. Ultimately, it is your sincerity, it is your own level of realization which will define what is right, what is wrong. Now, conclusion. I like this slide very much. It's a quotation, and it's just one of the perfect quotation which I refer in my this success slide. So you all can look at this quote. This is a quote. Just we should all engrave it on our heart. This is what Srila Prabhupada. I think Srila Prabhupada only has quoted this. So you all can read it, and there's a picture that explains what the quote really says. The life of material existence is just like hard wood, and if we can carve Krishna out of it, that will be success of our life. Very beautiful quotation. We all know that this material existence is very hard, very difficult, very challenging. It has a lot of obstacles within it. It's like hardwood. You can see the example there. Hardwood, like trunk of the tree, and we are within that tree. If we are trying to within that trunk of the tree, we are trying to carve Krishna out of it. Carving is like art. It is an art. Carving is an art. So we are trying to carve Krishna within our own life. And if we will be able to do it before we die, then it will be success of our life. So you see, I mean, for people, the criteria of success is okay. They are so passionate that they probably want to have success in 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, in a month. But for devotees, they are waiting for the real success when they actually die. That's why Srila Prabhupada, another interesting quotation that I like very much that Srila Prabhupada has used, life is a preparation and death is an examination. So we all are simply doing preparation to die. The whole world is doing preparation to how to live successfully within this world. We all are doing preparation to how to die successfully from get out from this world. So you see, there's a complete contrast. It's like people are thinking different, we are thinking different. We have a different approach, people have different approach. Now, yes, we accept and understand that people may not come to this level. People may not really realize this fact of life. So we have to present things in a manner so that they can really connect with what we are talking about. This is otherwise otherwise they may not really connect with the deeper aspects or mellows of devotion. Devotional journey is full of mellows. Okay, this is a conclusion. If we really want to carve Krishna, then we have to take shelter of the art that Krishna himself has presented in Bhagavad Gita, how you can carve Krishna from this hard wood. When he has given us a life, he knows that our life is full of hard difficulties, problems, challenges. So he has to give us a solution how we can carve Krishna out of this hard wood. That is his responsibility. And he has performed, he has fulfilled his responsibility by giving us this book, Bhagavad Gita, as it is. Now it is up to us whether we want to embrace this art available to us in the form of Bhagavad Gita or not. That option is left to us, and that is the choice that we all have to make, whether we want Bhagavad Gita or we want ordinary material world, which is just like a hardwood. Okay, so with this, I'm just quickly going to conclude. Uh, just one thing I just want to bring to everyone's attention. When I started this topic, I was talking about one principle of neuroscience, when I was telling that in neuroscience, at least from a modern material perspective, material world perspective, neuroscience contradiction between success and happiness. The spiritual or Vedic science, absolutely there is no contradiction. And at times we have seen devotees who do so much hard work to become successful on the path of spirituality. And when they do so much hard work, in spite of the fact that they might be having too much, too much disturbances within their own mind, but still they experience the bliss on the path of devotion. I mean, this is again very deep subject, but when we practically realize it, then we can understand that absolutely there is no contradiction, at least when it comes to Vedic science. Neuroscience may present a contradiction because there is a problem, but in modern in our Vedic science there is no contradiction. The bliss and success goes along. There is no contradiction between them. So with this, I would like to conclude my session for today.